Hi, my name is Corinne Bloom, and I'm a life coach, mentor, writer, and artist, and maybe more to the point, just a fellow human being. I feel like that's enough of a credential these days. And I'm jumping into the deep end, doing a bit of a rough cut kind of intro to a podcast that I'd like to start called Raw Conversations. And really, the idea is just to have an ongoing conversation about just being human, really. A lot of my work focuses on the authentic self, our relationship to ourself, and then our relationship to a partner in a romantic relationship. So, which entails both, right? Whatever our relationship is to ourself, how we're treating ourselves on the inside is, that gets reflected on the outside. And there's nothing like a romantic relationship to trigger all of our stuff. So I'm sitting outside with the crickets, and I just thought to just start the conversation. I think we have this idea, this false idea, that in order to be happy, that things need to be perfect, and that they always need to be happy and easeful and graceful. And so we really trip up in our lives when stuff is hard, when there are challenges, when we're feeling down, when we're having a tough time with our partner, we're in an argument, where I think we meet walls and we think, shit, that's it. I'm failing. Something must be wrong with me. I'm not good enough. We go into, we spiral down into, sometimes really, I don't like to use the word positive and negative, and I'll get to that probably at another point in time, but we go into negative patterns of thinking because we haven't been taught, we haven't been shown what it's like to be a human being. If we look online, everything to a certain degree is a facade or a show, or now more to the point, a filter, right? And we can literally filter, edit, cut and splice our entire lives. And I think there are very few, no, I'm not gonna say there are very few. There are fewer examples than more of what it's like to be human, what it's like to be in a normal relationship, what just life is like. There's, we've grown up in a society, in a culture that wants us to be prim and perfect. I mean, my goodness, nowadays you have an app that can put your makeup on for you, do your hair. You don't have to do anything. You can just completely alter who you are simply by taking a photo, and there's nothing real about it, right? So then there's all the more pressure that when we're having a hard day or we're in a hard moment with someone else or with ourselves, there's very little patience, right? And there's very little acceptance. So the point of these podcasts that I want to do, this conversation that I want to keep going, is just to get into the rawness of what it's like to be human. And can we come around to accepting our human experience so that we don't have to create greater suffering? Because life is tough anyhow. It's beautiful, it's brutal, it's a little bit of everything. But if we're resisting our very humanity in the process of it, we create more suffering. There's no doubt about it. So just to kind of dive in a little bit into relationship, I have learned so much about relationship. I'm 40. I would say my first long-term relationship was when I was about 19. And I've always looked at relationship as a spiritual teaching. There's always been growth, no matter if it's been a beautiful, wonderful, relatively easeful relationship, or if it's been riddled with pain and challenge and frustration, whether it's been short or long, it doesn't matter. There's always been something that I've taken away from it. And to add to that, I would say that, every moment that we've lived in this life, that we've been able to show up with some kind of presence or awareness, it all makes us who we are today. And I think I'm very grateful for the experiences I've had and for the moments where I sat and stayed with myself long enough either in contemplation, in meditation, in writing, all the nights that I stayed home alone when I was younger, rather than going out, and also the times that I went out and, did fun things, did stupid things. It's like every bit of life has brought me to where I am today. And I can see in retrospect how it's all taught me something. I love the quote, "Life is lived forwards, but understood backwards." I love that. So the older I get, at least, the more life begins to make sense backwards. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still going moment by moment. There's still days where I'm like, what am I doing here? I know nothing. But I'm okay with it. That's the difference. So I'm learning with my relationship towards myself, and in romantic relationship, that it really requires a kind of humility and humbleness to stay soft. And what I mean by soft is to not, get prickly and armored on the outside, to not get defensive, but to keep an open heart, essentially. And I think, again, we haven't been taught how to do that. We're still dealing with our unconscious wounds and trying to understand who the hell we are and how we feel or what we think about life, let alone how to, handle our unconscious fears, basically. And so a lot of what happens in relationship, both to ourselves and with others, is that we get triggered. We get triggered all the time, and we're not aware of why. And so we react, and we defend, and we attack, and we get caught in these patterns with our partners, or even just our own cycle of thinking within ourselves. We get stuck in a loop. And I've really learned that it's like, well, firstly, like, what if there was nothing wrong? What if it was all okay? And what if all it required was just our loving attention and our presence? Like, to get out of judgment, but just to go, okay, this is what I'm experiencing right now. And to essentially learn how to show up for ourselves and take care of ourselves and accept ourselves so that we can, it's just unveiling what's already there. We're worthy. We're good enough. Self-love is just the act of accepting our entire humanity. It's nothing that's from the outside in. Everything is from the inside out. And I think relationship has this beautiful way of inviting us. It's an invitation. It's a choice. How we choose to respond. Do we choose to respond or react? But it's a really beautiful invitation of learning this kind of humility, which asks us, can I be vulnerable? Can I be vulnerable and feel safe within that? Can I be vulnerable and not feel like I'm weak, which is what we've been taught? Can I take care of myself so that I can take responsibility for myself and not throw my crap onto somebody else? Am I willing to just stay long enough with myself to understand better what's going on for me? And then the more I understand what's going on for me, the more I can be in connection to the other, because I'm not attacking or defending or blaming, or I'm not triggered. I'm in a state of like, wow, okay, that might hurt. This might be hard. That might be challenging. This might make me sad. This might make me jealous. Whatever it is. But I'm able to stay with myself in the process and not abandon myself. And therefore, I can actually have a conversation with the other. And all of this can be said, it can be true for our relationship towards ourselves. Do I go into the story? Do I go into judging? Or can I just stay long enough with the feeling to understand what it's actually trying to tell me? So I could talk literally for hours about this stuff, and I'm not today. But as I'm sitting here, it's the solstice. The weather's been weird. There was this like edge of disappointment of like, wow, normally I go to the sea or I go up the mountain and watch the sunset, and it's all hazed over, and I haven't done anything. I haven't done any ritual, and it's like the feeling of like, wow, it's not perfect. And I have to say, as I've grown older, I've really enjoyed leaning into imperfection, coming from a background as a professional ballet dancer, where perfection is, there's nothing less than perfection, right? It's been so liberating for me to not just lean in, but like fall in, dive into imperfection. And I'm really rather enjoying it. Even this, it's like, okay, it's a rough cut. That's okay. I'm all right with that. That's, for me, it's more human. But I'm sitting here thinking about this around the solstice, and then I just thought, no, it doesn't need to be anything. It's just about being present in the moment. So I took a walk, and the sky ended up being beautiful in its own kind of weird way. And I just thought, yeah, that's so indicative of life, right? Our relationships, our work, our friendships, our everyday, they're not going to be perfect. They're going to be human. They're just going to be what they are. It's all an experience. And I think our resistance or our desire for it to be different than what it is where we get stuck and where we essentially hurt. That's where the pain and suffering comes in. So it's like, okay, what if I could just let go of the need for perfection? What if I could just let go of the need for it to be something that I have a current idea of what it should be, and just allow it to be what it is? And what it requires is an incredible amount of patience, which sometimes I'm not very good at, presence, and the willingness to be in the unknown, the willingness to soften our edges and just take one step at a time and be curious enough to see what's going to unfold without the need to be in control of it, to define it, label it, predict it. Because I think if we can stay long enough in the now, there's like, wow, it's so rich, it's so full, it's so comforting in a weird way. Even when it's uncomfortable, there's a comfort to just resting in the present moment, because it's truth. It's the truth of that moment. There's no hiding, there's no running away from, there's no resisting, there's no pushing back. There's no pretending. It's the isness of life, and there's something really beautiful about that. So like, what if everything was okay? What if everything that you're feeling, thinking, experiencing right now was okay? And it's just something to be with, to pay attention to listen to be in conversation with. And then that is the guide of how we move forward. That becomes the guide for the next step. So that's the beginning. To be continued. Thanks for listening.